I feel for myself, having been at Lee for 5 years, there's a growing use of the term intersectionality and getting to know what intersectionality means, which is really exciting for me. Being, my background being a person who is white and also transgender, is that I've seen a lot of the intersection of different identities, whether that's gender, class, race, all coming together. And so while, I think Lee recognizes the urgency and the importance of addressing race specifically as racism being one of the most urgent problems that we're facing today, we're also aware of those intersections. So a great example of that would be the LGBTQ resource group came on our all-staff call, where everyone in the virtual environment is present and listening every 2 weeks on this call. And so it was an opportunity to talk about issues facing queer and trans staff. But when we were prepping for it, myself and some other folks brought up, hey, it's Black History Month. How do we pull these things together? And how do we talk about the fact that trans women of color, particularly Black and Latina trans women, are at the most risk of violence? How do we talk about the fact that trans and queer kids of color in schools and education where we work are at higher risk? So how do we bring this up? And we were able to kind of pull in those two things and to open it up and reach out and invite our friends in the African American resource group, some who might be on both, to work together. And we try to always be aware of that. For example, we try not to schedule the LGBTQ group to meet in person at the time that a racial-based identity group is meeting, because that wouldn't allow people to bring their full selves to work.
Yeah, if I can add two more examples of where we've recognized that there's power in recognizing intersectionality. One is with our member programming. There was a really powerful dialogue about first generation issues and shared issues that really brought together people of all different, particularly racial and ethnic backgrounds, but all different identities, sharing really common experiences around what it means to be first and even second generation immigrants, and how that experience is created a lot of commonality and some recommendations for the work going forward. And then on the internal side, one really powerful example is, we have limited budget, as does everyone else. We had sort of a pool of budget available for resource groups and left it to the resource groups to decide how to allocate those resources. And they decided, rather than parsing it out and having each group take their separate pieces, to come together and have a staff of color retreat, and bringing together staff from multiple different identities to talk about what are the shared issues and opportunities around staff of color, both with our member and internal work. And even with doing that, the white resource group stepped in as allies and thought, how can we support this process? And not only ceded their money to the rest of the pool, saying, this is a bigger need than what we would spend our share of the money on. But they also lent a hand for support. They said, it's not just your burden to put this together. So logistical support, calling the hotels, all these things were supported by allies in the white resource group. So that was just another example of how are we supporting these common goals and thinking about the intersectionality of our common cause.